Hello everyone and welcome to lesson 4. This is lesson 4 on our course into our delve into the wonderful world of music theory. So today my friends, we are going to be talking about how do we write pitch. And while we're talking about this, we're going to talk about the staff. And you can see it right below me, and we're going to get very deep into that. How to write pitch. So now before we answer the key question for today's class, I want to talk about the stuff. So as you all know, or maybe as you all don't know, we write music, written music, on 5 lines. 1, 2, 5. 5 parallel lines with equal spaces in between them. It looks exactly like this. And we call these lines the staff. So all these lines together, all these 5 lines, are called the staff. And each and every one of these lines you can call staff lines. It's a less important word, but yes, if anyone ever asks you what staff lines are, they're just these lines which come on staff. Okay, so now you might be asking yourself, why do we write music on 5 lines? Why do we write it on lines at all? And the answer, my friend, is these lines help us write down pitch. And you might be asking how, and I tell you that the higher up you place a note on the staff, the higher that note is. So for example, if I have a note here, and if I have a note here, this one is higher as compared to this one. And because it's higher up on the staff. So this one's higher compared to that one because it's higher up on the staff. So hopefully that's intuitive enough for you. Now you might be asking me, what are notes? You haven't introduced that yet. And I tell you that we're going to be delving very deep into notes and durations in the second part of this course. We're going to go in deep into what they are, how they work, why we use them, how we use them. But for now, all you need to know is that notes are these things which we put on the staff, and where we put them on the staff tells us what pitch to play the note at. And most notes look something like this. God, that looked like that line was gonna die. Well, you get the idea, right? And this part, this oval, most notes look something like this. It's called the note head. And this line, which is ideally supposed to be straight, is called the stem. So note head and stem. And where we put the note head, forget about the stem. Where we put this oval is what determines the pitch. So where we put this oval, this note head, is what determines the pitch. So that's quite important, and hopefully you've got an understanding for that. We're going to be going much deeper into notes in the future, but for now, this is all you really need to know. Now, you might be saying, okay, so where we put the notes on the staff affects the pitch, sure, but how do we even put notes on the staff? Where can we put them? And let's think about that. So I could put a note on a line, a note head on the line to be more accurate. God, my lines are just terrible. I apologize. Regardless, I could put a note on a line, right? Like this, or maybe something like this, right? I could put a note on a line. But I could also put a note on a space, right? The space between two lines. So, but the space between two the ledger lines is also called staff lines, ledger lines. Other one. Let me start here. Slash ledger lines. The space between these two ledger lines, staff lines, whatever, the space is, we can also put a note there, don't you think? So we can put a note here on a line, but we can also put a note on a space between two lines. And we do this because we want to maximize the number of options or pitches that we can represent in the smallest amount of space. So we can use lines and spaces. So let me write that down because that's important. I don't know, I'm going pretty slow this lesson. So notes, or more accurately note heads, so let me just remove that as note heads can be put on a line or a space. Both work. And whichever one's higher is a higher pitch. So now let's take that into consideration. So I could put a note here, and it doesn't matter which line, whether it's a line or space, mind you. And I could put a note here. Now I want you to tell me which one's higher, and look at the note head. Well, hopefully you come to the answer, and this one is higher. Why? Because its note head is higher up on the staff. So if I place a note head higher on the staff, then it's higher than this one. And if you ever get confused, just try to picture that the stems aren't there and only look at the note heads, and look at where they are and which one's higher. Now I'm going to draw a series of notes, a pair of notes, I think 2 or 3 of them, and I encourage you to pause the video after I'm done and think about which one's higher and which one's lower. So I'm going to draw them right here. One is here, and let's say one is here. That's one pair. Then one is here, then one is here, and one is here, and one is here. So as you can see, I've written down some pairs of notes, and I encourage you to pause the video right here and tell me which one, in all 3 of these instances, which one is the higher note, first or second. So I'm assuming you paused the video and given it a go. I really do encourage you to go to do that, because the best learning is stuff that you do by yourself and try to figure out by yourself. Anyways, in the first example, the note head of the first one is higher than the second one. So in this example, it's the first. In this one, the note head of the second one is higher up on the staff as compared to the first one, so it's the second one. And in this one, the note head of the first one is higher up on the staff, and the note head of the second one, so it's first. So first, second, first. You can check if you got it right. Now, the reason we do this is again just to show pitch, and what in the lessons to come when we talk about clefs and note placement, you'll realize that each space and each line corresponds to one pitch. Like each space could be C or D or E or F, or each line could be whatever. So each space and line could be corresponds to one specific pitch. Now if you that sounds like this whole C, F sharp, G business sounds like mumbo jumbo to you, I encourage you to go look at my old lesson right here where I've just finished making it. And this is a half an hour long lesson, but it's extremely important. I cannot stress how important that lesson is. I really do recommend that you go through it well and thoroughly understand the concepts. So each one of these lines and spaces will eventually correspond to one pitch, one natural pitch. So C, D, E. This space could be C. This line could be E. That's just arbitrary, but you get the point. And we'll learn how that works when we learn about clefs. Now, one final note. You might realize that I'm drawing some of the notes like this and some of the notes like that. And you're like, well, how do you decide which one to draw them? So you might notice that when I'm drawing them towards the bottom half of the staff, that will be this half, I tend to draw them like this. And you might imagine if I try to draw them like that, like the other way, the one with stems pointing down, you get a stem pointing out of the staff, and that look really weird, wouldn't it? I mean, it looks weird to me, and it definitely looks weird to a lot of musicians, so that's why we don't do this, and we do that. So whenever we're on the lower half of the staff, we do it whenever, like you can think of it, first line, first space, second line, second space, we always write it like this, where the stem is pointing up, and the note is like that. And whenever we're on the upper half, you can think of it as third space, fourth line, like that, right? This half, we write it like this, where the stem points down. So as you can see here, the stem points down. And once again, we do this because I should clear this up. But if we imagine if we wrote it like this, once again, I've got my stem pointing out of the staff. It's weird. It's hard to read. So we don't do that. We want to keep our stems close to the staff as a general rule. So if it's in the bottom half of the staff, we keep our stems pointing up, and if it's at the top half of the staff, we keep our stems pointing down. That's one very important thing to keep in mind. And it's nothing to keep in mind whenever you're doing it down, the note head kind of goes like curves like that, and here kind of curves like that, but you don't really have to worry about that. Even if you draw like this, it's fine. Just make sure that when you're drawing it down, the stem is on the right side. When you're drawing it up, it's on the left side. But this usually comes intuitively to us. But if it doesn't come intuitively to you, just remember when you're drawing it, when it's you're drawing it on the bottom half, when the stem is facing up, it's always on the right, and when you're drawing it on the top half, where the stem is facing down, it's always on the left. And you can just refer to something like this diagram right here. This will give you all your answers that you need. You might be asking what happens on the middle line. Well, the middle line can be this or that, it doesn't really matter. You choose which one, usually dependent on the other note. So if I've got a bunch of notes down here, then usually I'll make this one like that. But if I've got a bunch of notes up here, then I usually make my middle line go down. Basically, middle line can be both with the stem pointing up or stem pointing down. Well, that was just very cluttered stuff. As you can see, I have over here. I should have got a longer picture. But yes, so just to recap, we write music on 5 lines. I can draw some here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. That's called the staff. Each one of these lines is called staff lines. We can put a note, or more accurately a note head, on either a line or a space, and both are valid. And where we put this note on the staff tells us how high a note is. So if a note head is higher on the staff than another note head, this means this note is higher than that note. When we're talking about the bottom half of the staff, we make our note heads like this, and we keep our stems pointing up and on the right side. When we do it on the top, we keep our note head like this and our stems pointing down, and it's usually on the left side. And when we're on the middle line, let me just extend that here, we can either do up, down, or up, whichever one works. Whichever one works, you can use it, and it's usually in context of the rest of the music. So on the middle line, either one works. On the top half, the stem has to be pointing down. On the bottom half, the stem has to be pointing up. And that's basically what we learned today. So hopefully this lesson was useful to you. In our next lessons, we're going to be talking all about clefs. We're going to be talking about clefs and how we use them, and then you'll, once you get deeper into clefs, you'll understand, hey, what pitch does this line mean and what pitch does that space mean, and we'll actually be able to start reading music. So that'll be good for us. Anyways, thank you for tuning in to this lesson, and I hope you have a wonderful day. Bye.